That's getting pretty good. That was the smoothest yet.
Yeah. We practice.
Hey, y'all, welcome to Cross Politic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. I got Pastor Toby, Chalk Knox, and of course, I'm the Water Boy.
What you drinking?
It's good to be with you guys.
Some sort of Coke and orange.
Why are you not sharing?
No, thank you.
I don't want to give you Corona.
No, thank you. Hey, make sure you guys join the club as we're going through this whole Corona panic with you guys every day here on Cross Politics.
I am not going through the Corona panic.
As we're walking through.
I am not panicking.
People.
I don't think our people are panicking either because they've been watching.
That's true.
They're like, hey, what's the problem?
But you know what they could do right now, though? They could also share the show.
They could.
Oh, that's right.
And tell everybody that we're on right now.
You can just like it. You
like
just
it?
Randomly like
Send
it.
some comments. There's 23 people watching right now.
Does anybody like it? I just liked it.
I'm liking it right now, too.
Like it because David is drinking Coke. Like
That's
it because Gabe's wearing a green shirt.
Ooh.
Just like
That's true.
And because Ben's on, too.
Right. But first, before we get to Ben, I want to just let people know our friend Nate Wilson, Indy Wilson,
please,
as he's known, the ND, where he is trying to get the last volume of the Ashtown Burials series published. Do you know anything about this?
This is my favorite series.
Okay, so
this is my favorite series.
So if you go to ashtownburials.com, you can read this and hear all about it. And there's a cool video and everything.
Yeah.
But basically, this is the story. He writes it there on the website. I just thought I would tell all of our listeners.
Please, because I take this very seriously.
So in 2011, he published The Dragon's Tooth.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal.
Fantastic.
It's phenomenal.
Do you want to play the organ or anything like that?
No, I'm going to be the organ.
Okay. And that began the Ashtown Burials series. That book did well, and he says that it's his most critically acclaimed novel. I didn't know that. He had originally planned 5 books, but his publisher began to nudge him down to 4.
Dogs! I'm sorry. I'm going to try.
So he adjusted the plan. He shifted the series into a quartet. He said, okay, we'll roll with 4. But then, as book 3, Empire of Bones, was published, they canceled all publicity, even going so far as to block Starbucks from giving away the iBook of The Dragon's Tooth.
Do you want to go to war? Because we could go to war.
What?
I'm for real. I'm for real.
He's for real.
I'm not playing with them.
The Dragon's Tooth nationwide is a pick for the week, so they blocked Starbucks. So after that, they told me that they had no intention of publishing the 4th book. This is the publisher of the Ashtown Burials. Luckily, Starbucks picked up Hello Ninja instead, which is just
God know what he's doing. God know what he's doing.
Cool little, they trying to shut down God's people, and God says, here,
Ninja.
I've got a blessing for you. And this cool little cardboard book, children's book, comes out as Hello Ninja, and Starbucks picks it up, becomes the book of the month, I think. And I think it's like right around Christmas time when they did this. And, of course, that little beauty became a sensation, followed by a hit show on Netflix, which if you haven't seen Hello Ninja on Netflix, check it out.
Got a season 2 coming, too.
I think it is out.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
They added more. I think they added more to it last week.
I don't know. I did the free month trial and then canceled again just so I could watch it a bunch of my kids.
I use my mama's.
I might do that. I don't know. We'll see. I'm sort of torn, But fans of Ashtown were left hanging painfully.
Yeah. Why are we?
See?
Still am.
Much like Rupert Greaves. Well, after much trial and travail, Wilson has finally happened upon a solution to facilitate publication of Book 4, which is called The Silent Bells. And what he's doing is he wants to publish it by serial. And he's going to do it. He's going to do it if he gets enough subscriptions. So every issue costs $3, including shipping. It will be billed automatically whenever an issue goes to press. And what you need to do is subscribe now, get your friends to subscribe, and then as soon as he gets enough subscribers, which is 2,000, he needs to get at least 2,000. Yep. And his goal is Monday, April the 20th. By midnight, he wants to get 2,000 subscribers. Last I checked, he was a little over 1,100. So a little bit over halfully. Got a few days to go. And we just want to encourage you, sign up. If you've never heard of it.
No. We want the cross-politic bump is what we want.
Y'all don't, I'm about to choke my mic out. You don't understand me. Let me tell you how serious I take this. I have 7 kids. I named one of them Rupert.
Brendan. That's true.
I named one of my kids.
This got personal.
After the characters in the book because I love the book so much. I've been dying here, people. This is not a soft gesture. Listen, this is a command.
Okay. If there's any love in your heart for chocolate
please,
knocks,
please,
go to ashtownburials.com. Ashtownburials.com. Watch the video, read about it. If you've never read the books before, get them now.
It's only $3 a chapter,
$3
right?
a subscription,
and then it gets mailed right to your house.
Just go do it.
Cross Politic Bump.
I'm sweating.
Come on, let's do it. Ashtownburials.com.
Okay.
With us on the line right now, waiting patiently, is Mr. Benjamin Nieuwsma. He's a senior engineer and the founder and CEO of Navigo, 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 a global risk analysis company serving 95 countries around the world.
Wow.
He's worked in software development management, engineer management, and consulting for the past 15 years. And Benjamin is married, has 3 children.
Are those kids baptized, Benjamin?
Heck yeah.
You all right. This is going to be a great interview. Way to go.
And Benjamin happens to live here in Moscow, Idaho. He's one of our neighbors, and he goes to church with us.
Yes.
So, Benjamin, thanks for coming on Cross Politic, even though you know who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So tell us about Navigo. What is it, and why did you start it?
Yeah, so we started Navigo because we saw that, especially for smaller groups that are serving in different dangerous countries, there wasn't a cost-effective, comprehensive solution to help protect them from risks and dangers along the road for, NGO workers, aid workers, missionaries, and even corporate folks.
Okay, and so what kind of risks are you actually assessing? What kind of thing? What does this actually do for people?
Yeah, so this tracks terrorism, disease, conflicts, social unrest, a lot of different types of risk, and then this helps the people work together with their organization to avoid the risk. There's an optional personnel tracking feature where we know exactly where people are.
Yeah, and
so the idea is to let the organization understand the context of the risk around their people.
Yeah.
So where a lot of people will subscribe to, like the State Department STEP program, which has a lot of excellent features to it, but it's countrywide. It's it's like warning us up in Idaho about a hurricane that's about to hit Florida.
Okay.
And so, like, for missionaries use this app when they're in the Congo or in dangerous places in Africa. They can get alerts that, hey, danger's coming. You might want to get out because of some high risk features that are alerting the app.
Yeah, correct. And it combines several things. So you've got the information aspect of the alert. You've got a communication tool set that's part of it. So you can securely communicate with the people in the field in a geo-tracked way. And then we have an SOS feature. We have a partner based outside of Houston that they're super awesome. They've got a nuclear bomb-proof shelter connected there to their facility with so you've got foot-thick concrete walls on the above-ground facility with 1-inch steel plating, and then the geoseismically isolated bunker. It actually has conjugal visitation rooms in the jails.
Good to know.
I wasn't asking about that, but
Yeah, but
Glad we got
don't
that out
get
the way.
detained there, But they're super cool, and so basically we have it set up so that somebody can use the panic button on the app, and then assuming there's a legitimate danger, we can send in the Marines or the quote unquote Marines, or
really
send out a helicopter to go get them.
Wow.
So when this whole COVID-19 corona crisis thing hit, you were poised to actually be ready to start offering services, and you pivoted pretty quickly. And I saw just a couple weeks ago you came out with this COVID risk assessment. How did that fit into what you were already doing, and what's been the results of that? Yeah, so we knew that coronavirus was going to be a big deal way before a lot of people, and even they're finally admitting that it likely was cooked up in the lab. They've tried to downplay that for months now. I mean, we've known that for months now. Did you know it before Trump?
I'm sure he's got the best intelligence, the best intelligence. But we knew it really early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, what did this COVID risk? What does it do, and what's the results been?
So the risk assessment has been, I would say it's been well received. The purpose of it was kind of threefold. We wanted people to take it seriously because we knew it was going to end up being a big deal. But then again, we saw people panicking, and we didn't want people to panic. And then we also wanted to help triage the anticipated overrun of the different testing centers.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know how well that,
how testing went. Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Finish up.
So in that respect, I would say for the first couple of line items, it was a great success. For the third one, we still in certain areas struggle with some scarcity of tests, but a lot of private options are becoming available. Mail order tests,
Right.
Private clinics, and so the triage of that has ended up being less important. But one of the most dramatic changes that we've seen as people will take the assessment, and it encourages them to be careful. But when they see the actual personalized risk score to them, a lot of them kind of breathe a sigh of relief and basically think, "Oh man, I thought I was going to die of this thing."
Right.
My chance of getting this is 1 in 10,000.
Yeah.
Right.
I can relax a little bit. I don't need to live in fear of this.
So you have now developed this website, this tool to do an assessment for people, and they can go in and type in some information about themselves, their location, geographical information,
Where they've been traveling.
yeah, ethnicity data, all that stuff, and then you run a risk assessment based off what, a number of
All those
data
things.
points, a number of how's that happening? How's the actual risk assessment being calculated?
Yeah, so we looked at a whole bunch of the different factors that have to do with a more negative outcome with this disease. And then we asked questions that have to do with that. So, and they're split into 3 different categories. I like threes. So the first one is, if you are sick, then we ask you about your symptoms. And if your symptoms align with coronavirus, then we'll let you know that it's possible that you might have it. Now, as far as having an actual positively tested case of it, the likelihood of that in our country is still very small.
Yeah.
But at least we'll let you know if your symptoms are consistent and you should pursue some kind of testing. Then we look at what you've been doing and kind of your behavior to understand whether you're likely to have come in contact with it. So we'll give you a likelihood of infection risk, and based on were you in the area, did you hang out with people who have it, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then we look at susceptibility, so things like smoking, for example. COPD is something that about 1 in 5 smokers have, and if you have COPD and then you get coronavirus, at least before they started heavily treating with hydroxychloroquine. So I don't know if that changes this aspect here. But if you have COPD and you're a heavy smoker, then your fatality rate was actually more like 50%. So so factors like that are significant.
Yeah.
And so that's how we look at, okay, what's the risk to you personally? Age is another fascinating one. It's almost a straight up exponential as far as age and the overall fatality rates.
Once you get over a certain age.
Well, yeah, I mean, people in their 60s, 70s, 80s,
right?
Especially people in their 80s, very much higher fatality rate,
right?
And so, so that basically we model based on that.
Yeah.
So Ben, what is the website that we would go to? What is the name of the app if somebody right now is listening? Is like, I wish I can go and get this joker and just do this right now while we're talking.
Yeah, so for the assessment, it's COVID-19 app.navigo.cc. And so that was the first thing that we built as a kind of rapid response. And I have to pat us on the back just a little bit. When Trump came out and said that Google was going to have this kind of assessment that did all of this kind of stuff, well, Google was doing something internal for the different testing laboratories. Yeah. And so in our case, we actually delivered what Trump promised would be delivered, and we delivered it before Google had anything out and before Amazon or Apple.
Hey.
Salute.
Go Idaho.
Yeah. But I have to give a shout out to, I have engineers also in Texas and in Spain. So,
you can't do this without Texas.
Amen.
Right. Promise. Right.
Benjamin, what have you seen? One of the questions we've had along the way as we've been assessing all of this is it's been difficult to compare different countries. So you have
states.
Well, yeah, but let's just go with countries to start with. I mean, you've got Italy statistics, you've got China statistics, you've got Great Britain, you've got all these different nations reporting, and we're trying to compare their data points. And I know we've got more data now than we did initially. But have you seen anything in your analysis of the data regarding average age, average amount of smoking, details like that have affected the data coming out of various countries?
Yeah, absolutely. But I would go beyond just those details. I would say politics has a huge amount to do with what's actually in the data.
Oh, really?
So China, for example, I would basically not believe anything that came out of China as far as their numbers.
Okay. For real.
And when you look at different information like the quantity of urns being delivered by the crematoriums, the numbers that some of the different brave employees from there reported, you don't have 6,000 deaths. You've got tens to hundreds of thousands of deaths due to this in China.
Okay.
Now, lest we, again, panic over it, you've got to realize that China has billions of people. And so statistically speaking, the percentage of population that we're talking about, that fatality rate gets, basically spread into, the denominator still makes it so it's nothing to lose your mind over.
Right.
But it's certainly not what they said.
Mm. And any other interesting data points with comparing other nations?
Well, so when you look at Italy, for example, what most people don't realize is that the northern part of Italy had a very heavy retired Chinese population, and this was due to a treaty that was signed between the Chinese and the Italians, which had a lot of money involved. Ooh. But it also made it so that it was impossible for Italy to keep the Chinese from flying and visiting and retiring there. And so
as I understand it, there's a direct flight from Wuhan to northern Italy.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I expect that's true. But you have a whole bunch of, elderly 80-year-old Chinese woman smokers. so they're checking all of the different risk boxes.
Yeah.
Right. And then Italy decides that they're just not going to give ventilators to people in their 60s because they're going to save them for younger folks.
Ooh,
wow.
So,
which is true.
Right. So when you make those type of decisions, of course, you're going to have a very different data set that comes out of that.
Right.
To speak a little bit, insensitively, you've got we're dealing with people, but we're understanding it in terms of data. And so then to see the U.S. respond as though we're Italy and we're making the same types of decisions, which we're not,
right,
is just not very intelligent.
No. So now you've tied a lot of this data into what's going on to the economy. You've actually built an additional tool that ties in the problems that is created from the COVID virus, but also what those problems look like and how we're shutting down the economy. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So as we pursued the data more, we started to see some alarming trends, which included us, using and building models based on Italy and China, and then using those models to basically shut down entire states. And from my perspective, that's discriminating against the low population density areas because they're treating them exactly like Washington, D.C. or New York.
Right.
And the problem with that is they're not. And one of the strongest correlations that we have in the data from a cases and risk standpoint from coronavirus, from our own data, is that population density is a massive factor.
Yeah.
And so population density in some places in rural Idaho, you have 1.7 people per square mile.
Right.
So on the density index, you're going to get a very low score for that county, right? As opposed to the score that you get in Washington, D.C. is going to be like 10,000.
Be a lot higher.
Wow.
Right. So it makes no sense, but this is the danger of distance politics, right?
Right.
When you take and you have people making decisions and they don't understand the breadth and the diversity of, that's where I like diversity, right? The diversity of their electorate, of their citizenry.
Yeah.
And so they look at what's right in front of them and then they make a decision. And in this case, when the different legislators were shown models that looked incredibly scary and that showed that they were going to have this absolute overrun of the hospital system.
Right.
It's hard to fault them minus an alternative set of data for deciding to shut things down. Right. Because at that point, it's too early to tell. The entire world is freaking out. We don't have good enough data in the U.S. We're doing our modeling based on Italy,
right,
and on China, and they get shown this thing, and basically the message is, if this happens, this blood's on your hands, and as a politician, you ain't getting back in.
Right.
So at this point, it's a personal risk, it's a societal risk. They feel like they have a moral duty to start just completely shutting everything down, and so that's what they start to do. The problem is that they're thinking of it with blinders on. They're only looking at that one curve because the other curves aren't in front of them.
Right.
And so they end up then making decisions that have ripple effects because they're thinking of it in terms of, well, it's just the economy and it's just money. Why would I value money over people?
Over
That's
death.
right, yeah.
Over death. Right.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's not just money. It's people versus people. And you end up with secondary and tertiary effects of these type of decisions. And these secondary and tertiary effects result in additional deaths. They result in loss of economic capacity, which leads to things like loss of healthcare capacity. And it leads to increase in poverty rates. It leads to all kinds of bad effects. Right. And right now, the data set that they have in front of them is much more focused on simply treating coronavirus as the most important thing in the entire country.
So would you help me with something? If you I think it was that our governor just extended our stay-at-home setup till the end of April. End of April.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, so I could tell you're a super big fan of that. So if you had a chance to sit down with Governor Little and show him what you have that could help us get back to work faster, what would you sit down and tell him, and how would you break apart what you're doing to say, look, here's the data, here's what we're doing, here's how we can get back to work faster?
Yeah, so I would ask him how he's protecting the small counties, how he's protecting the places that are, does he understand the difference in the communicability of the disease based on population density? Why is it that Latah County had to lose 3,000 jobs because 3 people are sick who are staying at home?
Wow.
Right?
Exactly.
Why would we do that?
Right.
And so, in any other situation, if 3 people get sick, depending on what the sickness is, you take some solid measures to make sure that they're not going to infect other people with it. But this is the first time in history we've ever tried mass quarantining the healthy people. And the argument goes something like this. Well, there are these people who are asymptomatic carriers in the population. And
Right.
so we don't know if you're poisoning everybody else.
Right.
Well, to which I would say, okay, that's actually phenomenal news because you're trying to argue it both ways. So if there's all of these asymptomatic people in the population, then this means that there's actually a ton of people who have this, which means the fatality rate is much lower than you're saying.
The threat is minimal. The threat is minimal.
In which case, it doesn't make sense to shut everything down.
Right.
Right. So either, logically, there's no other option. You either have tons more people that that have this, and it's really not a big deal, except for a handful of people with pre-existing conditions.
Right.
Or we actually know more or less how many people have it, and it's actually a way bigger deal. In which case, let's focus on making sure that those people don't spread it.
This is at restartnow.io, so you can go there right now. This is what we're talking about. This is the brand new website that's started by Benjamin and Navigo. It's called restartnow.io.
And you have data in there for Idaho, data in there for Texas, and then you have one more state you rolled out?
Yeah, we just did Florida yesterday. Today we're going to have fun. We're doing California.
Yeah.
It's okay if they come back a little slower. It's all right.
That's right.
And so your goal in all this is to tie the corona decisions into the destruction of our economy, basically.
Yeah, so basically think of it as if, there's a problem with one of your outlets or a light bulb burnt out. And so what you've decided that you need to do is, and let's say this is at some kind of office building, right? So what you've decided you need to do to deal with the burnt out light bulb is to go and throw the master breaker for the entire building.
Right.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So a step better would be, okay, let's just isolate that one circuit breaker for that room and let's turn that off. But there's a really easy option beyond that, which is just, why don't you just turn off the light switch, right? It's right over there. You don't have to go back to the breaker box. You can just turn the light switch off, right? And so by mapping this out on a county level, what we can show is that, let's benefit of the doubt. We're still getting information. We still don't know the true denominator of this disease, but we've got all of these counties that are low risk from the social work index standpoint. The obesity and diabetes and smoking and the age of the population. So we have all these low risk counties that are losing jobs every day. Let's turn them back on first, right? In fact, let's start that today.
Amen.
Right? And so we understand that you've thrown the master breaker. And now at this point, if you just throw it back on, you might burn out a few things. Okay, so let's take and let's be much more specific. We have data so we can make informed decisions.
Yeah. Right.
And we can do this in a diligent and orderly fashion. And what this is also going to do is, so suicides are starting to go through the roof. I mean, there's suicide hotlines are up 200 to 300%. In a number of counties, more people are dying from suicide than are actually dying from coronavirus on a given week, right? And it's starting to be reported, and this makes really good sense because if you look at even the CDC's guidelines against suicide, it's things like maintain human connection, don't isolate yourself, control your own destiny, right? And so what we're doing now is we're saying, okay, don't have human connection,
right?
Purposely isolate yourself,
right.
Unplug from society,
right.
And it doesn't matter what you want to do. If you're going to go kayaking on the bay in California, we're going to arrest you. So you better just stick the heck in your house. And you'll be fine.
Don't even watch sunsets.
Yeah. Don't even watch sunsets. Right. So when you do that kind of thing to people, and then you realize that we've told a ton of people that not only did you lose your job, but we cannot promise you when it's going to actually come back. Right. And in fact, it may be months. We may have to do this social distancing thing, for an entire year or two, is what some of the different people are saying.
Right.
Fauci is saying you can't even shake people's hands anymore. Right. So human touch is out of the question. So of course we're going to end up with people who are depressed and frustrated, especially if they don't have Christ.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
You took them out of their comfort zone. You took them away from their friends. A lot of people like to socialize at the bars. The bars are all closed, and in fact, they're all closing permanently, just because they the taxes didn't go away, the rent didn't go away, the revenue's gone.
Right.
Right. And so, and then you also consider that, something like, 1 in 4 of the different folks who are out of work in Idaho are actually the owner of the small business.
Right.
Right. So they may have sacrificed a huge part of their life to create this particular business. And if that business is now gone and their life savings is gone,
right.
The money that's coming in from the stimulus, where we've looked at the overall estimated, economic impact, and we can say, okay, well, we basically replaced a portion of a quarter of our revenue, right, with $1 trillion stimulus, but 2/3 of that goes to the government.
Man.
Okay, so
man,
so the losses were borne by the private industries, and so the government gets 2/3 of the buyout. For the bill.
Wow.
This is massive, Benjamin. This is huge. And right now I'm seeing people on Facebook that are asking, how do we do New York? How do you do this? They're wondering how can they get engaged, because a guy, Jeremy, is saying right now New York is treating us upstate folks like New York City. And that's not fair. So how is it that other people can be a part of this? This is something that I think we need to be privately funding. I'm sure that right now the slowing you down is probably funds.
Yeah, well, so just think about that for a second. We're a global travel risk company at a time where travel is at all-time highs, right?
Yeah.
or not.
So last night I was chatting with a pilot buddy of mine who's he's a commercial pilot, and his average flight right now has like 3 to 4 people in the entire airplane.
Wow.
Right. So So if you'd like to support us, we've got an Indiegogo campaign, and we're about to set up also a direct PayPal donate button on the site. But yeah, the biggest thing is that we're doing this at cost at a time where people aren't traveling, which is affecting our primary business.
And so basically, someone could actually fund a state of data in your system.
Yep. That's what happened with Florida, right? We had somebody who said, "Hey, I want to see what's happening in Florida. I think that the fallout from this is greater. That the cure is getting more costly than the actual disease." And I was like, "Absolutely, we'll give you Florida."
So you can get on so you go to restartnow.io and you can click on the link there says basically find your location.
Yeah.
You click on find your location, a big United States map comes up, and so far there's 3 states lit up that are available to see the analysis that they've done. You've got Idaho, Texas, and Florida, and you click on Texas because, well, Gabe's
the promised land.
Gabe's on the show.
Yeah.
You click on Texas, and you have this these numbers running across the bottom of the page, showing what we've already lost. Dollars lost, $34 billion. Jobs lost, 713,861. Increased suicides, an additional roundabout 267. COVID deaths, 305. Wow. So he's comparing
COVID deaths probably went up just a little bit because we update the data on that every 24 hours. So it's probably like.
But then you scroll down, and one of the things that's so helpful about this is how you've broken out the counties. Again, rather than doing this carpet bomb the whole thing, say where's the actual high risk counties and where are the low risk counties? And so you've got 176 counties in Texas categorized as low risk. And $22 billion lost just there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
With a 17.6 million population. Okay, that's almost 70% of the state, 70% of the counties in the state. Then you've got medium risk counties. There's about 51 of them. That's another 20%. There's $11.79 billion there and 8.8 million people. And then the high risk is only 27 counties, about 10% of the state counties, and only $2 billion actually centered there. But you had $22 billion getting lost in the 176 low-risk counties in Texas.
Unbelievable.
And you keep scrolling down, and all the counties they're broken out one by one. You can look up your own county. You can see the number of deaths and recoveries listed, the job impact, the economic impact. Wow. I think this is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. You send this to your city council member. You send this to your
and that's actually what I want to ask is, Benjamin, have you had any conversations with mayors, city councils, governors, people?
They need to see this information.
Positions of authority. Have you had any conversations with them about this?
No, not so far. That's part of why our goal is to, kind of generate a groundswell and get folks looking at it, because what's happening so far is that, if you think about their position as one where you've got basically a pressure switch, right? On the one side of the switch, you have all of this COVID paranoia, and you have the CDC, and you've got some of these big tech firms that are continuing to double down on you need to take and keep everything closed.
Right.
Now, the reason that the thing is that this is a very easy argument for big tech, because big tech, facilitates things like interactivity without meeting people in person.
Right.
And being able to take and do this kind of discussion we're having here without having to be in person, and, proactivity tools and all of these different things that make it so that you can work from a distance. This is big tech's shining moment.
It's feeding them.
Right?
Yeah, it's feeding that beast.
So they don't have an incentive to say, hey, everybody take a step back, let's look at what's happening economically, because for them, this is an economic benefit. And so right now, the pressures that's been put on the politicians, a lot of it comes from CDC, whose job is to be, the
boogeyman.
Nervous about this kind of thing, because there's Centers for Disease Control. What are they going to tell you? Oh, don't worry about diseases, right?
Well, they were saying that back in January.
But the thing is that you use people based on their expertise, and so their expertise is studying this disease. It's not studying the economic fallout. And again, if you think about blinders, they're looking at one set of numbers, and that is, okay, how many cases are there? And there's a very strong correlation as well to the availability of tests. The more tests we do, more cases are going to show up. And of course, everyone's then going to say, well, if we open these counties back up, we're going to see more cases. And the answer is, well, yes, we will. But at the same time, we're going to see fewer suicides. Yeah. Right. Yep. And in a place like, Latah County, where you've got no deaths, you've got a handful of positive tests, and those folks are all doing fine and quarantined at home. Our biggest danger right now is not the coronavirus. Our biggest danger is the loss of employment. It's the depression. It's the mental health issues. It's the increased crime. It's the property and violent crime, and there's all of these secondary impacts that aren't being considered by CDC because it's not in their purview. Right. And so part of why we need to create a groundswell of support for this type of data is that we need to take and put pressure the other direction. Yes. And because what that does is it makes it so the politician feels like they have the backing behind them. Politicians like to wear some kind of one of those back supports, right? And their back support is basically, what are people screaming about? Yeah, right. And so right now, the authority figures have all been screaming one direction. What we need enough people, and they need data so that they can actually say, hey, all right, we're making an informed decision here. Yeah. It's not a single master circuit breaker. We're turning on some light switches for rooms that are safe for people to be in. Right.
Wow. I'm so thankful for this
work.
Yeah,
I am too. Yep. RestartNow.io, Benjamin Nieuwsma, thank you so much for joining us.
And if you support them, put cross-politics in there. I think we get a percentage. If they
work out something. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have kids. And if you have kids, do like Benjamin does. Go baptize them. Hey. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. He said waterboard him. Go fight, laugh, and feast. Oh, and become a club member, too. That's a good thing to do as well. This is Cross Politics.